Good evening and welcome to our hats this September, almost near the middle of September when it's 95 degrees out, but it's never too early to knit a hat. And in fact, it's probably the most requested thing that we get when folks come into the shop and say, I want to make a gift. And sometimes we start making our gifts now, and sometimes we don't start making them until December 10th. Or December 20th. No, not quite that long. But what we've always want to do is try to get everybody moved forward in making some hats. They're great for gift giving. They're great to wear just personally if you like to wear hats. And we do know that someday there will be colder weather, and we will be thankful for those hats. So one of the things we try to do every year is share with you some of our favorite hats. So you're going to be seeing some of the similar hats that we have shown before, but we've also got some new ones that we'll be sharing as well. So, and we'll be sharing recommended yarns and those things. Again, if you have questions, just write it down in the chat. I think everybody's pretty familiar with Zoom now. We are recording this for those that are unable to be with us live, and you'll be able to come back and watch. You'll be able to come back and watch this again. One year, what I did for the holidays is I made a batch of hats, and then I let my family draw or pick them out, and then they could steal them. So, you know, that game that you can kind of play where you're wrapping, do you want to grab a gift and steal a gift? And that was my idea, that they would be able to steal whichever ones they didn't want to steal. They felt so bad about wanting to take a hat from somebody that everybody just took what they originally took. And it was really fun to see who took what, because I thought this person would like this one, this person would like that one. So that's a fun thing for you to do, is to have a stack of hats that are available. Many of you have probably done some of that, and maybe when we're done at the end, we can share those things. But hats can be very simple and can be made out of everything from fingering weight yarn to bulky yarn. And so we're going to show you our two very favorite hats that we work with beginning knitters on, and that is our Lexi and our Sarah hat. And they are named for my daughter. So this is the Sarah hat. And you'll notice that the Sarah hat does not have any ribbing. So it's simply cast on and knit. It's done in Rowan big wool. And it can also be done in Malabrigo Rasta. It's done on a 15. It can be done with magic loop. And this is a two-tone. So big wool, really great yarn if you're interested in getting something done fast. So this is called the Sarah hat. It's a free pattern. If it's our free pattern, we're going to give it to you with the purchase of the yarn. And then this really is very similar, and this is named for my daughter-in-law, and this is the Lexi hat. I must have something about two tones because I like the two-tone look. But it's very similar. It's the same thing as far as casting on, but it's a different weight of yarn. It's going to be more of an Aran weight yarn. And so it's got a different shaping at the top and a different amount of cast on. But I did a two-tone with this as well. And this is done with Rowan Tweed Haze. So the Tweed Haze was a new yarn from Rowan last year that has been very popular, and it's lightweight, where this one is going to be a little heavier, a heavier hat, the Sarah hat and the Lexi hat. And again, these are our patterns. You'll see our pom-poms. So many of you are familiar with our New York pom-poms that we get with Steve. He's actually in Long Island, but we just call him New York Steve. And we love these pom-poms. Now they are real fur pom-poms. And so sometimes your pom-pom will cost you more than the hat. But sometimes good-looking things are worth the money. And the really nice thing about a pom-pom like this is they have a tie that can be undone, tied on to a new and different hat. So I don't know if you buy that for a 3-year-old, but you never know. So we do have those, and we will be having more. We will be having more of those pom-poms, or have a restock coming in here real soon here in October. Two other popular, one hat that's popular, 2 yarns that are popular is called the Elm Road hat. And this will be your free pattern that you will be receiving in your Ravelry library. And it is a little bit of a mistake rib, and not a mistake rib, but it's a purl through the back loop, knit through the back loop hat with a very simple, there's a very short, very small decrease on this hat. So it's mostly you're knitting a cylinder, and we have it in 2 suggestions. And so this we showed you today, this is called, again, the Elm Road hat. And we showed you the 4 new colors that we've gotten in. They are just as yummy as can be. And this is 100% alpaca, and it's the Harriet Great. And you can make one hat out of 1 skein. So, you know, these are lovely, lovely. If people come in and say, I want something soft, then alpaca is going to be your jam. That's going to be where it is soft. Alpaca does have a tendency sometimes to stretch, but you know, we've had this hat at the shop for, well, I think we did this last year, and it has not lost its size. So I would say that this is, if you're looking for soft, then the alpaca soft or the alpaca Harriet Great would be great. How about that? And then the other yarn that we made it out of is Juniper Moon's La Pampa. Now, La Pampa is a much more woolly yarn. I thought I brought one home. Oh, yeah. It's a much more woolly yarn, and it is 100% organic wool. So it's kind of a nice, look at the stitch definition on this. It's a little bit, you'll see that your alpaca is fuzzier. This is a little definite stitch definition. I'd say this is a good guy hat, so to speak, you know, somebody that wants something that looks a little bit more wool like, or rugged, or out in the wild, so to speak. And so that yarn is La Pampa, and again, one will make it. So that's really nice. We love those. When I'm working with yarn companies and when I'm buying yarn, they don't have enough yardage to make one hat out of a skein, then I always kind of question that, because we want to keep your hats reasonable, especially these. These are all 4 of these hats that I started with tonight are hats that you could easily make if you sat down and got serious about it in probably an evening and a half. So these are going to be your hats that you can make last minute. Ones I would get made now. I knit my hats on Magic Loop. Later on, when Kay shares about her hat, she'll talk again about the little shorty needles that are available. A lot of folks knit a hat on a 16-inch round and round circular needle, and that works great. You've got to figure some way to do your top, which you could switch to a Magic Loop, or you could switch to double point needles at that point. So those are kind of beginning hats that are easy and fun to do. Let me look at my notes. I did make notes about this. While we're talking soft and talking alpaca, we've had from the very get-go. It's when the Colorado Cat was super popular. You could buy them everywhere in the stores. And then, of course, all you have to do is look on Ravelry for the knockoff on it. And so this is a Colorado Cat. It's and we will have the listing of all the patterns. It's called CC Copy.Cat hat, I believe. And it's a free pattern, but we love to use the moonshine. And so we're back to our alpaca, and this is alpaca, wool, and silk. And one skein will do this as well. And I wanted to show you these colors up close, because these are our 3 new colors that came in. Nice navy. Sometimes we have difficulty finding a good navy. So if you're looking for that kind of color, that's great. And then this one, kind of a red. It looks more red, but it's really kind of more almost pumpkin, but not orange. So it's kind of a fall leaf. I think of a red fall leaf would be what, and I think the three of these look that way. So some of our other hats that are color work, these would be beautiful. And that is Moonshine. You've seen that we were talking about Juniper Moon. They're one of our favorite companies. They have great yardage on them and they're very economical. So, and a great yarn on top of it. So that's been some of our favorite yarns to work with. The one thing about the CC hat is it is a brimmed, you'll knit the brim and then you can either Kitchener it or pick up the stitches and join, not Kitchener, provisional cast on and join that way. And so a lot of folks like these brims because the brims then around the ears add extra warmth. And so that's why I wanted to move right into Susan, because her sample of her hat that she's sharing tonight, I have it since she was on vacation. I have it at the shop, so I'll show it, Susan. But Susan, I'll let you introduce your hat, talk about how you made it, and it has a similar kind of construction as well. And then Susan's also going to talk about how to fit hats for different age groups and heads, and is there really a difference in that? So Susan, here is your hat, and it is.
Okay, that's the Oslo hat by Petite Knitter. And she's a Danish designer. It's got kind of the same brim as the CC hat, except the whole double brim folds up so that you actually have 3 layers. And it's unlike most hats, it's all stocking. I guess it almost looks more like the Musselburgh hat, but it isn't quite as much knitting. You knit the brim, and it's a fairly long brim first, and then you knit the cast on of the brim with the stitches on the needle, kind of like a 3-needle bind off, except you're not binding off, you're just combining the stitches. So you knit 2 together as one. And then you do a strange thing where you knit about, you knit a little ways, and then you turn the whole hat so that you're working on the inside. You just change directions, the thing you're told not to do when you're beginning knitting, and you start going the other way. And so that becomes the outside of the main part of the hat. And then it just has a nice decrease. It's a nice fitting hat. I think that I went back and looked at my notes, and I usually take pretty good notes, and I did not take very good notes on this hat, but I did make the 5th size and I made it for myself. And I don't have a tremendously big head. I think I have like a 21-inch head. So I think I made the 5th size, and I think there are 2 larger sizes, or there might just be 1 larger size. But anyway, I knitted on a size 4. The recommended needle size is a size 3. It's knit with fingering yarn, with sock yarn, and a strand of mohair held together. And I'm not a mohair person. I've not knit any sweaters where I've had held mohair with my main yarn. But it went flawlessly, and it made the hat really, really soft. And so it only took 1 skein of mohair, 125-gram skein of mohair, and it took not a whole 400 or more yard skein of sock yarn. Jessica's yarn would be perfect for this, or any of the, like La Bien-Aimée, or any of those would be perfect for this hat. Any fingering yarn. The pattern, she also has, I knit the mohair version. She has the pattern in 2 different kinds, and one is for no mohair and one is for mohair. But I read in the comments, which I get a lot of information from reading the projects on Ravelry. And somebody said the patterns are really basically the same. But the one with a no mohair uses a DK weight yarn. So it can be knit both ways, but it's a nice fitting hat. They say in making a hat, you should knit your hat with about 2 inches of negative ease. We're always talking with sweaters, normally positive ease, but a hat should have about 2 inches of negative ease to fit. And I don't remember measuring this one, so I don't know quite what that is, but I think Angie's head is bigger than mine and it fit her just fine.
Oh, thanks.
Or did it?
Yeah.
I'm not calling you a fat head.
Right. That's okay. It's okay.
I'm not calling you names.
Yeah, it fits fine. Fits really well. And you
Yeah.
know, I'm wearing, I feel like I'm on QVC, you know, how they show
Well, you're a
things
much
that-
better model than I.
but it, you know, you've got you can slouch it, which all of the 4 hats I've shown before, you can slouch as well. But then what's really nice is you can take it and really beanie it up and get that extra, you know, if it's really cold out, we know it's going to be cold. I have a dog I have to walk. So then that's how it looks on the back. So Regina says, I saw the Oslo's hat in person today and says it looks and feels luxurious. And, you know, we're just like everything, nothing quite shows on the screen as it is with it. And it is the Oslo, OSLO hat. And that was from Petite Knits, Petite Knits. And it is a purchased hat. So Susan, what recommendations do you have for, you know, I don't, but let's say I have little 5-year-olds, 8-year-olds, you know, all the way up. What's kind of the standard in hat knitting?
Well, that 2 inches of negative ease is really pretty much a standard. Occasionally your pattern will say, you know, they'll have the sizes like small, medium, large, whatever. But they'll usually give you the circumference of the finished hat. And usually you want to choose a size that has about 2 inches of negative ease. It depends a little bit on the fabric that you're using. If you're knitting like the Oslo hat is a stockinette hat, so you probably don't need quite as much negative ease there. But if you're doing a 2x2 ribbing hat, you definitely need the ease, because if you knit it to the circumference of your head, it's going to fall down over your eyes and not be comfortable to wear. But by the same token, because usually hats have ribbing at the base, they can often fit a variety of sizes. And if you've ever had kids, you know that babies' heads are not necessarily small. So on the internet, you can usually find a chart for head sizes, but baby heads are usually 18, 19 inches up to 20 inches. So you would want to make a hat that was about a 16 or a 17-inch hat, and making it with especially a 2x2 ribbing gives you a lot of flexibility. The thing that you need to watch then is the depth of the hat. Most baby hats usually have a depth of 7 inches, meaning you're over the head to the bottom of the next ear and divide that by 2, and that's the depth of your hat. So you knit up, and then you do have some crown decreases that still add a little bit to the depth, but you want to know kind of what you're aiming for. And you can, a lot of hat patterns do say to swatch. I am an advocate for swatching, as if you know me at all, but with a hat, I normally don't swatch. You know, if you've got samples or swatches that you've knit in stockinette on a variety of yarns and you've recorded needle sizes, you know pretty much what your gauge is going to be for a given weight of yarn. But usually I think you can figure that the crown is about 1.5 inches, kind of like a sock toe. But anyway, so for a baby, you're going to about a 16. A large man's hat, you'll want to knit about a 22 or a 23 inch hat. I mean, if they've got a 24-inch head, you're probably working with around a 22-inch hat.
And you're talking circumference there. When
A circumference, yeah. And usually a man's hat has like a 9-inch depth. Now that's from the bottom of the ears up. If you want a double brim, if you want a fold up cuff, you need to add a couple of inches. If you want a slouchy hat, you need to add at least another inch.
One of the questions, Susan, is do you take someone's head measurement and look for patterns with finished measurements that looks like 2 inches of negative ease? And then the other question was, what is negative ease again? So
okay, negative ease is you have 2 inches of negative ease if you measure your head and you measure it from your forehead over the around just above the ears to the back, kind of the same path that a hat brim would take. So if my head measures 21, I would knit a 19-inch circumference hat. It's 2 inches smaller than the actual size of my head. That ease is how much difference there is in the fabric and the actual size that you want it to fit. When I knit a sweater, I like to have about 4 inches of positive ease. You know, so if my measurement is a 38 bust, I'd knit a 42-inch sweater.
And we refer often to negative ease. Just another reference is when we knit socks.
Absolutely.
So you don't want socks that are too big, they'd fall down. So negative ease means that they expand to fit, like a hat expands to fit. And that gives, you can see this one's got nice snug up around.
And a lot of times when I'm going to knit a hat for my grandchildren or for a new baby that's being born or something like that, I will Google free hats on Ravelry so that I can at least, even if I'm designing the pattern on a hat, I can get a ballpark figure of what I want. Tin Can Knits, their barley hat, they do that in worsted, but they also have a barley light, which is done in fingering. Purl Soho has tons of free hat patterns. And so if you can find one that's using the weight of yarn that you want to use, then you can, you know, use those numbers, even though the hat you might want to have is a little different style. Usually when you're knitting a hat, the ribbing is done with a smaller needle, or I don't know about usually, but often, just kind of like sweater ribbing at the around the sleeves. You go down a needle size or two. So I kind of use patterns that somebody else has already experimented with and gotten, you know, the numbers down. Sometimes hats you'll knit the ribbing, and if you want a blousier hat, you can do some increases at the top of the ribbing as well. Another favorite hat of mine that I really think knits up nicely is called the Myra hat, M-Y-R-A, and it's by Knox Mountain Knits, K-N-O-X, Knox Mountain. And that has kind of a neat little cable pattern. When a hat has cables in it, it's going to pull it in as well. So you need to be aware of the patterning of your hat fabric as well.
Okay.
Did I answer the questions?
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. I love it when you're typing your questions. That gives me time to look at them. And so if you're coming along and you think it's something that Susan, you want to ask Susan still, we'll still do that. So in talking about knitting for your family, okay, we're going to get ready for you. Knitting for your family, what, you know, people come in and they think they really have to make a real different hat. And it's really, we found that kids, when Susan's saying like a 19, there are some adults that have 19. Babies' heads are kind of babies' heads, and then they grow a little bit, but once they're there, they're there. So
Actually, a lot of patterns, once a child gets or a lot of hats, once a child's about 10 or 12 years old, an adult small fits them just fine.
Yeah.
Or larger even, so.
Okay, great. So Kay has some very fun, we love these little patterns. They're adults too, but we started with them kind of as for kid hats, right, Kay? And so Kay's gonna show her hats, and then she's also going to talk a little bit about using the 9 to 12-inch circular needles. So Kay, you want to share yours?
Well, you all know that I kind of like doing stranded knitting, and these are some really cute ones that have come out by one designer, and Angie, her name.
Rosie. Yeah,
Rosie Posey Knits.
Rosie Posey Knits.
And so she has one that's great for Halloween. And I really like, I had test knitted actually for her when she came up with the Christmas one. And so this one has in sizes for baby, toddler, youth, small adult type of sizes. When you do the smaller size, what you end up doing is you're losing part of your pattern. So for the baby size doesn't have the snowflakes at top. But I like doing these. We use the Wee-Paka in this, and it is just super soft. So that's for stranded. And what I prefer to do when I do my stranded hats is use the small mini circular needles. So I'm using like 3-inch tips, and then whatever size of the small connecting cord that I need. And this works great for me because you just keep moving right along, and you don't have to take time out with your magic loop, and you don't also have to watch for those ladders because you don't get ladders when you continue in the round. What you have to do though is when you start decreasing and your stitches get to be too tight for the narrowness of your diameter of your needles, then what I will do is switch to magic loop during that decreasing part. But yeah, I find this is a fun way. You can see I've got the reindeer coming in here, and what I'm planning is I'm doing 2 sizes for a 2-year-old and a 6-year-old, and I'm planning to give them probably about mid-November so they can start wearing them all through the holiday season.
Do you have the Halloween one there?
Here's the, it is so cute. Now for the tinier version on the Halloween, you lose your moons. But this is a great pattern on Ravelry, and this one is the spooky hat. And the Christmas one is the holly jolly hat. Right.
And the yarns, as Kay mentioned, the yarns that we use there is Big Bad Wool. And this is the actual colors that are in Kay's spooky hat there. And Big Bad Wool is their Wee-Paka. Big Bad Wool is the name of the company. And this is a great hat yarn as well. It's merino and baby alpaca. So we're back to softness. So when customers come in and say, I want something soft, then we're always going to kind of look. And Kay, I don't feel like those have stretched really. And we've had them a year. And again, some of that's because it's got wool in it, but it's also the stranded knitting. Do you go up a needle size sometimes with your stranded knitting?
You know what, I don't always, but that's just because I know how I strand. And sometimes if it's something very small, if I'm doing socks, I may go up half a size. But on this hat, the hat is done totally in the same needle all the way through, I think.
Okay, so those of you that are doing our Huskow, you know that we've gone up some needle sizes to help with that. And if you haven't done a lot of stranded knitting for your hats, you might want to consider that, because Kay knows her gauge. She knows how that works. So you don't want to have to, I've knit them and I'm like, I can't get them on. So that can happen with stranded knitting. You want to be, you kind of get a sense of that when you're going up. You've got to show it on the back there, Kay.
Yep, there we have, seeing where it's stranded in the back.
Okay, it's great. So we just got a restock of all the yarn for the spooky hat and the Christmas hat. So again, that would be something, if you want to get those made, now would be the time. And last year we had adults making the spooky hat to wear for Halloween. So super fun. And then designers RosiePosieKnitCo. There's another Rosie Posie out there, but this is a little gal from Bloomington, Indiana, actually. And she stopped by the shop and we got acquainted with her, and lovely little gal. And it is a purchase pattern. So fun to get after getting those done. And then we have some for Valentine's Day and those things as well. So, Kay, thanks for sharing. Definitely. All right. So we're going to talk a little bit about specialty hats. And did we lose Regina? Regina, where did you go? There you are. So Regina has got kind of a specialty hat on, and then Steph will be coming to you after Regina. So Regina, tell us about your beautiful hat that you're showing off there.
All right, I've got the beret on. This is James Watt's Best Beret pattern. I knit mine in wool stock. You could also use, it's a worsted weight hat. You could also use Malabrigo Rios. It comes in 2 sizes, small and large, for your circumference. And the way that the sizes break down, it's for 22.5-inch head circumference or larger does the large size, and 22.5 or smaller does the small. So I'm right on the dot at 22.5 for my head, and I knit the large, and it fits perfectly. In addition to sizes, there's different silhouettes. So there's a dramatic silhouette and then a classic. So I've made options of both, and you can see the dramatic is just a little bit bigger. And so it just hangs down a little bit farther. It's a little bit wilder silhouette. And then, oh, Angie's got the dramatic as well. And the Malabrigos with that softer yarn, it's a little floppier. I know we were talking about soft yarns. In the wool stock, it's woollier, but it holds its shape a little bit differently, which I kind of like for this.
Yeah, you could. Is that your wool stock one, the pink there, right?
Yeah, they're both wool stock. This is just a smaller one.
And mine is the Malabrigo Rios. So any worsted weight yarn will work.
What's kind of special about this one is the I cord is kind of the start. So you make an I cord for the circumference. It does have kind of a gauge for your I cord, and I would recommend making the I cord swatch. The pattern calls for a US 7 for the I cord. I had to go up to get my gauge close, so I used a 9. To get the 4 inches that they wanted for that. When you are making it, it's nice to be kind of close on the gauge, but don't worry about it too much when you're actually making the rim for your hat. What you want to focus on is, does it fit? So this is half of the circumference for my size here, but it's not quite half the size that I need. So I know I'm going to have to add some stitches to my I cord to get it to fit my head. And that's much more important than just sticking with the number that the pattern calls for. Make sure it fits. Because then once you have the I cord done, you pick up the stitches along the edge And when you're joining in the round, you can make the adjustment. If you had to make more stitches than it called for, if you had to make less, you can fix that. So yeah. Oh, and then on the topper, you get a choice of 1 or 2 stocks. I had to go with 2.
So cute. And I tell you what, you can wear this like this. You don't have to wear it like I'm painting in Paris kind of thing. Yeah, look at all the different ways. Is that the small one, Regina?
Yeah, so I made this. This is the dramatic silhouette, but it's the first one I made, and my circumference is a little hard, so it's a little to get it on, and it leaves me with a little mark. So when I did it again, I added some more stitches, and it's much easier to wear.
And it's got a really beautiful, those are your increases and decreases. And look how it's just really, I don't remember how we did the increases and decreases, if it was a make one or how, but look at how beautiful it looks. This has been a really popular pattern. And let's see, we talked about, did we do it on a 16 and then you went up to a 24, Regina, and then you went back down, or magic loop? What did we do with that?
This one, I did it all on the 16 inch in the round. And then you can do, as you decrease, you can do either magic loop or double pointed needles.
Yeah. Okay. Really easy to do. Great pattern. I've had lots of customers that really have enjoyed it. And Regina did a great job. She put her link to the Ravelry pattern in the comments. So don't forget to look at the comments, because there's some good questions. Thank you, Regina. Looks great. Regina was in our Facebook, our special correspondent today in Facebook Live. So if you haven't watched our special correspondent in Facebook Live, you will want to watch her today. Watch that as well. All right, Stephanie, you've got you've got several hats we're going to talk about, and then we'll finish with your crochet hat, and then Val will roll into crochet from there. Okay, so Stephanie, this is another fingering weight yarn. So many of us, and I'll talk about some of our other ones, we buy so many skeins of sock yarn. Said no one ever. only the last 3 days, right, with Jessica's new yarns. So we're always looking for something for a hat. Cindy, I think you found this pattern originally, and Steph made it. So Steph, you want to introduce us to it and tell about how you did it?
Sure. This is the Bristolecone hat. And I fell in love with Cindy's, so I wanted to make one. It is using Jessica's self-striping yarn with 2 strands held together. So once it's wound into the cake, you can grab one from the center and grab one from the end and just use them held together. This one has a double brim, which I love. So it was a provisional cast on double brim. I love it because it keeps your ears warm. And then it was just a really easy cable pattern. Couple rows, you slip the stitch and then you either cable it left or right. So it was a pretty easy pattern to memorize and follow. And then it used up, I made the adult size, and it used up almost the whole skein of the sock yarn.
And was that Jessica's sock yarn?
That was Jessica's, yes.
Why don't you hold it up again close so that we can see the crisscross, the little cable look. Very, very cute. And I think what we liked about this is that this hat kind of looks striped, even though it's not made with striping yarn. And Cindy, yours look kind of the same way. Just a really nice way to use up that sock yarn. And the pom-pom looks smashing. So what are your other hats, Steph?
So then the next one I have, this is called the Clover Club Hat. It's a purchase pattern on Ravelry. This is using the Brooklyn Tweed Shelter. So 3 different colors of that. But it's just a really fun and easy colorwork pattern to do. So I've made 2 of them. This one is made out of the Rios. So
Beautiful.
it's just, yeah, any worsted weight yarn, but it's, I like how it turned out. It's a nice size and shape, and I just love the colorwork pattern.
Did you go up a needle size for your color work?
I didn't on this. I just used the suggested, and I thought I'll see how it looks. And then it looked like it was going to be okay. So I tried it on in the first little bit of it, and it was fine. So I just kept going that way.
Striking. And was that it? That was okay.
That's it. Well, then I have my crochet one.
Okay, yeah. Well, let's look at your crochet one then.
Okay, so this one is called the Elizabeth Beanie. And this was made with Rios as well. So it has just a fun little textured looking pattern. So it starts with the brim. You do it in rows using a slip stitch to make it look like ribbing. And then you pick up from there and work it in the round for the rest of the hat.
Wow, that doesn't look crocheted at all. What is it? Is it singles?
It's a special stitch. So this is a the pattern is Elizabeth Beanie by Rich Textures Crochet, and you can purchase it on Ravelry, or there's a link to her website where you can get it for free.
Okay.
But this is one that when my family came to visit, we all made this hat together. So I had my 8-year-old niece was the youngest. So she's made several of these and given them to friends and donated some to charity. So she loves this pattern.
And say the pattern again, you kind of cut out.
Oh, Elizabeth Beanie.
Okay. And Regina, thanks. I like how you're putting those up. Thank you very much. Elizabeth Beanie. So Regina's got the link in the comments. Steph, thank you very much. And you know, as you've all been hearing, we're crocheting so much. And so we really want to be able to provide other patterns. If you're not a knitter at all, there's got to be other ways to make hats. And gosh, that hat looked fabulous. Very, very fabulous. And we have the Shelter. So Shelter is a Brooklyn tweed yarn. If you're not familiar with Brooklyn tweed, their source. They know everywhere that these yarns come from. So this is American Tarhi, Columbia wool, made in the USA. So everything is done in the USA, from the raising of the sheep to the shearing to the washing the product to carding it to dyeing it to spinning it. It's all American made. And so, and it is some of the nicest yarn that you will ever work with. And Steph, why don't you hold those 2 hats up again that you made with this? You did the color work out of it. It's a worsted weight yarn. And so you could make the beanie, or you could make the beret out of this. You could make the CC hat that I have on out of this. And Val, you want to tell us how you used Shelter? Thank you, Stephanie.
Sure. I'm going to take this off. I made the Bellwald hat, which is stranded, and I used a different stitch on this. It's called a split stitch single crochet. So it looks like a knit stitch. So you're just going through, you're placing your hook through the vertical V of the crochet stitch instead of on the top. So I did that with this. Here, I need to change my view because I cannot see what I'm doing. All right. So I did that. And this is out of the Brooklyn Tweed Shelter as well. And I did love it. It's beautiful yarn. The Bellwald hat. Studio Madelaine is the name. You can get it on Ravelry. It's a purchase pattern on Ravelry. But just like Stephanie's hat, with crochet, in order to get your ribbing, you need to crochet a flat piece first. And that's what I did with this. I crocheted, I don't even remember how many rows, but this is customizable to different sizes. You just decrease or increase the number of rows you do by 8 rows. And then, so you can make it as small as you want or as big as you want. So I I crocheted just back and forth single crochets through the back loop, and that's what makes the ribbing through the back loop. And then once you have it the length that you want, then you fold it. So you have a long, narrow tube. So this is it's double brimmed. And you close your length here, and then you pick up your stitches and off you go with your color work. So it's super fun. I did make it shorter though. The pattern had me going about another 10 rows, and I knew that that would be too big. So I did make it shorter, but I got all of my color work in those 10 rows. So any questions?
I like how that brim
Yeah.
looks.
Yeah, this is really nice. It's going to be my my snow hat this winter for sure, because it is going to be super warm.
Mhm. And because of the shelter. So again, we showed you those, and then these are just solid shelters. So shelter has been a it's a woolen spun, so it sometimes looks tweedy, I guess. And Brooklyn Tweed came out with these solid colors this last spring, and so that's what you saw both Steph and Val work with for that. And if you're going to join our sweater class, you might be using this as well.
That's right.
So really nice, really nice, lovely yarn. Very good. All right, fabulous. Well, I have just a few more to show you, and then I want to talk about the Lazy Purl and why you would do the Lazy Purl. When we were talking, thank you, everyone, hat makers, for all of your great tips and great hats that are out there, and I know you guys know them as well. Another popular hat that we have, again, all of the one skein fingering weight, is what we call the morning walk hat. And we made a whole bunch of these. We kind of go through these phases where we make a bunch of the same. And this is just simply a 1x1 rib fingering weight carried double. So, and it's a beanie. I'll put that on. Put that on. I am so hoping it gets cold so I can wear all these great hats. So it too is because of the double texture, the double strandedness really creates a nice, again, things you can wear as a beanie. If you're making hats for young folks today, they don't want to wear it like that, but they do like to wear them like this, slouched. So that's why I like these hats, so that you can then take them and you can make them tight, or you can make them slouch, and gives them options on how to wear that. We could not find it, and I never found it before I left, but many of us have knit the Musselburgh hat. So you're familiar with it. We talk about that hat as well. And what's great about the Musselburgh hat is it's double layered, and it fits inside of each other. And the Musselburgh, the thing about that is it's a very long knit. So it's fingering weight. It's not, you can do it in a DK weight, but many of us have done it in the fingering weight. And so it becomes a very long knit, where something like a morning walk hat, or like Susan's Petite knit little hat, you can still use the fingering weight yarn and get it done fairly quickly in time for gift giving. But these that are smaller, you are not going to want to wait. The smaller fingering weight yarn. I want to show you this hat. So you probably wouldn't, I was laughing about this today. You probably wouldn't open this up and go, well, thank you for the hat. So, but this hat is called Lucky 13, I believe. Let me make sure I'm telling you the right thing. And Lucky 13 by Nell, Nell Knits, Lucky 13. And the reason I was attracted to this is because it's wool stock light. And so if you're doing the Haskell, then you are doing, you're working with wool stock light. And so many of you have commented about how you have enjoyed that yarn.
And Woolstock has a bag where you can buy 14 colors, and we are going to be restocked on that, where you would be able to buy the 14 colors. But this is a marled hat, and I'm going to talk to you about how I marled these yarns. I ended up not doing 13 colors because it was getting so long. So I ended up, I think, with 11 colors. I cut 2 colors out. But again, this is one that looks better on. So there you can really wear it slouchy, and or you can roll it, and you can even double brim this because it's so long. But it looks much cuter on, right? Thumbs up. Yes. Okay, so let's talk about how to marl. You saw that we had the marl pumpkins. You have to have kind of a rhythm of how to marl your yarns. And basically this is knit 2 yarns held together. So we have been talking about holding 2 yarns together. And so this pattern was 5 rounds of the charcoal held together. Then you drop 1 charcoal and you knit 4 rounds with the medium gray held together to give the marled look. After 4 rounds, you drop the charcoal, and you'll knit with 2 rounds of the medium gray, or 2, I'm sorry, same color. So it's a 5 and a 4, a 5 and a 4. And you can decide how you want to do your marling, but that was the way this was done the whole way up, where you dropped. So again, it was 5 rounds with 1 color, drop 1 yarn and pick up the next color. And then while you're using 2 different colors, you knit 4 rounds. Then you drop your original color and you'll knit 5 rounds doubled with the next color, and so forth all the way up. And that creates that neat marled kind of look. You don't have to be that succinct. You could be very random with your marling. But I'm knitting another marl project, and it's similar. It's got a same kind of rhythm. And I think that's partially because it's just easier to remember than trying to think, oh, what have I done, or where have I done it, or what would I like to do? But this is a warm hat, 100% Highland wool, fingering weight. And so the double fingering weight is going to create kind of a DK. I call this kind of a heavy DK. Because it's kind of a heavy fingering weight as well, but really a nice, fun thing. And so we want to talk then, we'll finish with our Lazy Purl. I had learned this from Patty Lyons in New York a couple of years ago, and then I've forgotten about it. And this Nell Knits, this pattern, she talks about the Lazy Purl. And it made such a difference. I'm going to show you 2 hats. A hat that it made a difference, this hat and the other hat. But what the Lazy Purl is whenever you've got a rib like this, sometimes, and I don't even know if I have an example, sometimes it will kind of ridge out here and be gappy when you make your transition from your knit stitch to your purl stitch. And it'll kind of look like there's a ditch in here. And the Lazy Purl will help you avoid that. And boy, it did. This is the tightest rib that I have ever really knit. And she explains it in the pattern, but I'm going to show you a short little video on how to do it. I did it also with, not this hat, Susan knit this hat, but this is the Portland cap from, and this is using the Woolstock Aran weight. And then this is our one, how to do a cable needle. And I filmed a tutorial on all this as well. And what's really nice about this Portland cap is you can practice the Lazy Purl, and then you do 1 row of cable knit. 1 row of cable knit. That's all you're going to do. So let's give a look to the Lazy Purl, and then we'll take any questions that you have. And I think I've got everybody's name written down, but we'll just confirm and wrap it up and start knitting our hats. So let me get and make sure I've got the right tutorial for you here. It is okay. We're going to go to screen share, These will be edited and put up under, they will be edited and put up under tutorials.
Straight to you an example of what is called the Lazy Purl. Knitting is a series of and the yarn travels across each stitch. And sometimes in a rib, this is a knit 2 purl 2, you can get a little bit of a gap between the purl stitch and the knit stitch based upon the amount of yarn that's being used. So one of the things I like to use, especially in a larger, I don't always use it so much in my socks or a small, finer yarn, but in a larger yarn weight where it's really going to show, I like to make sure that that's a little tighter, and you can see that this 2x2 rib looks really really cinched up. And so how does it work? You do your 2 knits. First I'll show it to you continental. So you do 2 knits, and then you'll bring the yarn forward as if to purl. And one thing that you will notice is that I've done some lazy purls before this round, is that it will be on your needle backward. And that's because you enter the stitch from the rear. And so you take your right hand needle, you bring it in from the back, and then you're going to wrap your yarn underneath, because this would just be a regular purl. That uses less yarn and helps the yarn travel shorter, which then cinches this up. So let's look at it again. Yarn forward, enter the purl stitch, the first purl stitch from the rear, from right to enter right to the left, and then you're going to wrap it underneath and bring it out. You finish the purl with a regular. Now let's switch and we'll show it English style. So we would knit 2 stitches. Yarn forward between the needles, and you'll still enter it the same way. So you'll enter the back of the needle from the behind, and then you'll come under your needle and over and back and out, and that creates the short. This one you would do as a regular purl, which would be up and over. Let's look at it one more time. Yarn behind, knit, yarn forward, purl, enter the purl from the back, wrap your yarn underneath your needle and out, then do a regular purl, which would be over your needle and out.
Okay, that's a lazy purl. You can find other tutorials. I'll put that tutorial up. It won't be tomorrow. I'm out of town tomorrow, but Wednesday, when I have an opportunity to do some editing and get things up, that will be under our tutorial section in our YouTube, on our YouTube channel. And I kind of forgotten to use it, and I've used it on both these hats that I've knit here this week, and I can't even believe how nice they look. So I've had customers come in and complain about that ridge, and so that's why I want to share that with you tonight, so that you could maybe put that in if you've got some hats. Again, I don't do it on my socks, just because I don't do it on my socks because it's small and tiny, and you know, I'm making them so fast. I don't want to delay too long. But something like this, it really shows that 2x2 rib. I want that to look nice and neat and crisp. I also have a tutorial on the cable. We won't take the time to look at that tonight, but it's just a 3-minute for those of you that have never used a cable needle. I'm going to show you how to use a cable needle. This one, I did use a cable needle. I like to do cables without needles, but that'll be for another time because this was a little bulkier and definitely needed a needle. So I took the opportunity to show you how I use the needles that have the little hook on them and how to do that. But you'll be able to look at that as you go. So are there any questions that you have that I haven't seen on the Regina did a great job putting the patterns up. We'll do likewise. I take one or two questions. If anybody has a question about a hat, don't necessarily need to know additional stuff, but just if you have a question about anything. I think we did have one. Let me go back here about Susan says the Oslo hat, the directions say to cast on. Susan, you want to say what that was?
Yeah, the directions for the pattern just say cast on. And then when you get to folding the brim and stitching it down, you pick up from the cast on. And you have to then make sure that you're picking up the same stitch that's straight down the down from the live stitch. It wasn't my idea, but it makes sense, and I did it. I found it on the patterns when I looked on Ravelry, and I just did a provisional cast on, and then I could put those stitches from the cast on live on a needle, and it was real simple then to knit the two stitches together. So I wanted to mention that because that's different. That's one modification to the pattern I made.
Okay.
If when you're sending things out, if you guys have a cheat sheet on fit, you know, like those links to the depth that Susan was mentioning, that would be super handy.
Okay, super.
I do have one, and I'm not sure what it is. So
You bet. We'll get it up. We'll get it.
I'll find it.
We'll put it in our YouTube, and we'll put, down underneath, and we'll put those links. Very good. Well, you're all smiling. I think that you're going to be hat enthusiasts here, right? Are you kind of feeling like maybe it's time to make a hat? Yeah. All right. Very good. Well, we'll look forward to more Zooms now that it's getting dark out, and this is just a great way for us to get connected, and we'll upload this, and then you'll be able to go back and watch it. Or if you have friends, you can refer them. If you didn't watch it live, you don't get the free pattern, but you certainly can check the links out and download those at your convenience. So thanks, staff, for your contribution. We appreciate that, and have a great evening, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.